They don't respect the one who stays, not the one who forgives, not the one who explains, not the one who gives chance after chance, hoping they'll finally see your worth. They respect the one who disappears, the one who doesn't argue, doesn't beg, doesn't announce, the one who simply walks. And when you walk not with bitterness, not with rage, but with silence and certainty, everything changes. Because as Machiavelli said, it is better to be feared than to be loved if you cannot be both. And nothing instills fear like the person who doesn't need you anymore. You see, the reason they treat you like an option is because you keep proving you'll stay no matter how you're treated. You're always available, always explaining, always compromising. And they've learned something dangerous from that. No matter what I do, you won't leave. So they test you. They withdraw. They disrespect. They replace. They provoke. And every time you stay, you teach them they're right. Let's make it clear. They're not confused. They're not immature. They're not bad at communicating. They know exactly what they're doing. They're training you. Every time you chase, every time you overexplain, every time you beg for clarity, they learn that they can hurt you and still keep you. They lose respect, but keep control. But the moment you stop playing, the moment you go silent, the moment you don't show up to the fight, the moment you stop chasing a response, now they're scared not of you but of your distance. Because now you've broken the pattern. Now you've done the one thing they didn't expect. You walked without warning, without drama, without giving them a show, just gone. And that more than any argument, more than any confession, more than any apology, is what earns their respect. Machiavelli understood this perfectly. He wrote, "A prince is also esteemed when he is a true friend and a true enemy. In other words, be clear in your presence and unmistakable in your absence. No one fears someone who clings. No one respects someone who begs. They respect distance. They respect boundaries enforced without words. They respect the one who says nothing and never returns." Let me show you how this plays out. Imagine someone mistreats you, mocks you, uses you, lies to you, then disappears. You send the paragraph, the explanation, the emotional monologue, and they reply with, "Lol, you okay? Why are you being dramatic?" You just gave them more power. They weren't looking for love. They were looking for proof that you're still emotionally available. Now flip it. They disrespect you, they cross the line, and you say nothing. You don't reply. You don't retaliate. You don't try to fix it. You vanish. Suddenly they're unsettled. They send, "Are we good? You're really not going to talk to me? Wow, I didn't think you'd actually leave." Now the power dynamic has shifted. Not because you won, but because you refuse to compete. That's the Machiavellian move. Don't escalate. Just exit. Let them scream into silence. Because silence is not absence. Silence is strategy. It's how you reclaim the ground you lost while chasing validation. And let me tell you something cruel but liberating. They only start respecting you the moment they lose access to you. You don't need to punish them. You don't need revenge. You don't need to teach them a lesson. You just need to disappear in such a way that your absence becomes the loudest sound in their world. They won't hear your words. They'll hear your absence. They'll replay your silence. They'll reread your last message. They'll stalk your posts, looking for signs of anger or forgiveness. But there will be none because you've walked not away from them toward yourself. Here's the twisted truth. They never believed you'd leave. They believed you'd bend, break, beg, stay. Because you've always been the one to care more, the one to reach out first, the one to smooth over the chaos. But when you walk away without giving them a villain to blame, without giving them closure, without giving them the fight they crave, you become a mirror. And in that mirror they see their weakness, their manipulation, their emotional dependence. And that's what haunts them. Not your anger, not your pain, but your absence of reaction. Machiavelli understood that most people only learn through loss, not through empathy, not through conversation, through impact. He wrote, "It is necessary for a prince to learn how not to be good." It sounds cold, but it's true. Because being good, being endlessly available, forgiving, soft in the face of repeated disrespect, That's not virtue. That's emotional suicide. There's nothing noble about staying where your worth is a negotiation. There's nothing strong about loving someone who only respects silence. You're not loyal. You're just afraid to walk. Let's talk about what walking away really means. It doesn't mean blocking them dramatically. It doesn't mean posting cryptic quotes. It doesn't mean pretending you don't care while secretly watching their stories. Walking away is an internal shift. You stop explaining yourself. You stop making excuses for their behavior. You stop telling yourself they'll change when, and you accept they won't change because they never had to. You were doing all the emotional work. You were carrying the connection. You were paying the price alone. Walking away means you finally stop funding the dysfunction. And the result? They begin to crumble. At first it's quiet. A like on your post, a breadcrumb text, a sudden compliment out of nowhere. They'll pretend it's casual. But it's not. They're fishing, testing, hoping because you've become a scarcity. And what's scarce becomes sacred, but only after it's gone. Now here's what you'll feel tempted to do. Reply. Explain. Show them what they lost. But don't. Because the second you engage, you confirm one thing. They still have emotional access. And people don't respect what they can access at will. They respect what they had to earn and failed to keep. The people who truly loved you, they would have changed when you were still there. But the ones who only respected you after you walked, they never valued your presence, only feared your absence. And that's not love. That's control panic. They don't miss you. They miss the version of themselves that felt powerful while you were available. Machiavelli would have called your silence a political maneuver. Not petty, not emotional, strategic. You are no longer reacting. You are no longer proving. You are no longer auditioning for value. Now you are governing. And your first act of power was walking away without needing to be chased. And now you're not the desperate one. You're the mystery, the absence, the ghost they can't decode. They tell themselves stories. They must have someone else. They're being immature. They're just doing this for attention. But deep down, they know you're gone because they failed to keep you. You walked because staying any longer would have meant betraying yourself. That's what burns the most. Not the silence itself, but the reason behind it. Here's what you'll notice next. People will start to mirror your distance. They'll pretend they don't care either. They'll act unfazed. They'll mimic your energy. But it's fake. Because when someone doesn't care, they move on. But when someone pretends they don't care, they watch everything, every post, every silence, every sign of your peace. Because deep down they're hoping for a relapse, they're praying for the old version of you to come back, the version that broke their own boundaries just to keep the connection alive. But that version of you died the day you walked away. Machiavelli said, "The first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him. Look around. Who did you let stay? Who did you keep explaining yourself to? Who did you tolerate? That's not on them. That's on you. But not anymore. Walking away isn't just about others. It's about what you're no longer willing to tolerate from yourself. No more proving. No more fixing. No more bleeding for people who sharpen the knife. You've upgraded from emotionally available to emotionally untouchable. And the best part, you're not bitter. You're not angry. You're not even guarding your heart. You've simply remembered if they only respect you when you walk, then they never deserve to stand beside you. And you're done making space for people who only recognize your value after your silence becomes unbearable. Here's a final truth you need to feel in your bones. You never had to scream to be heard. You never had to prove your loyalty. You never had to exhaust yourself just to be seen. The right people would have never required that. They would have respected you the first time. They would have changed while you were still there. They would have apologized without being forced. They would have valued you before your absence. But they didn't. So now they don't get to access the healed version of you, the quiet version, the peaceful one, the one who doesn't need closure because they've already closed the door themselves. You're not heartless. You're not cold. You're clear, and clarity looks like distance. To the emotionally immature, it feels like rejection, but it's not. It's reclaiming control, because the second you walk away, you stop waiting to be chosen. You stop hoping to be seen. You stop watering deserts that were never meant to grow anything but regret. Now, you're not chasing love. You're attracting respect through silence. Let them talk. Let them wonder. Let them rewrite the story. You've already left the chapter. You're not the villain. You're not the hero. You're the lesson. And the ones who failed to learn it, they'll meet you again in someone else who walks faster, quieter, sooner. This is the law of power. When you walk away, they will either rise to meet you or watch you vanish into a level they can no longer reach. Either way, you